Before we jump into working with a cloud-based server, there is one step we need to do first, and that is we need to ensure that either we already have an SSH key, a secure shell key, on our computer, or if we don't have one, then we need to generate one. And I chose to do this recording on Windows because I think they're at a slight disadvantage compared with those of you on Macs or even using a Linux desktop machine. Because a lot of things are really, really different in Windows versus what they're like in Unix or Linux. And so I'm trying to go from the most foreign thing into the new thing. So the first thing we want to do, again, set up an SSH key. This is really useful. It's basically a security key that will allow you to access your server, but also access your code on GitHub. There's lots of places you can actually use this, but we're going to use it to access our server in a very secure way without using passwords. So let's get started on this. The process for Mac is the same. Just launch Terminal. And on the PC, I'm going to launch PowerShell, their version of Terminal. And let me bump up the font on this just so it's a little easier to read. And my PC does this weird thing. I don't know if yours does too, but you can see what it's doing. It's putting the prompt in the wrong place. So I usually come in here and just type clear, C-L-E-A-R, and hit enter. And now we've got a clean prompt to start with. All right, so the first thing we want to do, and this is regardless of whether you're on a Mac or a PC or even a Linux box, we need to do ls, which is the command for listing files. We're actually going to learn to do this later on the Linux machine itself. But nice little introduction to it here. ls means list all files, and we're looking for .ssh. Now on my computer, this is a fresh install of Windows. There's nothing on here, and it's not there, which is what I would expect. Now if yours is there, you can look inside of that and you can see that you should have two files in there. One called idrsa.pub and the other one just called idrsa. And we'll look at this when we actually create ours so you can see what it looks like. But if you already have those two files in there, then you don't need to do this step. So let's go ahead and generate our key. The command for this is the same regardless of which operating system you're on. You just type in SSH-keygen. And it'll say, where do you want to save this key? And it's going to default to your home folder into a special folder called .ssh. That's the one we just tried to find, and it wasn't there. And it's going to put it in ID_RSA. Since it's in parentheses like this, that means it's the default. So I'm just going to press enter here. Next, I need a passphrase. Now, if you really wanted to, you could hit enter and just use no passphrase, but I don't really recommend that. That's the whole point of SSH is security. So let's pick a passphrase. It can be the passphrase for your computer. It can be the passphrase for whatever you can use. And you want to use something similar to what you'd use for a password. So different combinations of letters and numbers, anything like that is great. So I'm going to type something in here, and you won't be able to see it. So I'll type it again, and then it should give you this fingerprint notification and this funny little random art image. Now we can see the two files that I mentioned a minute ago, idrsa and idrsa.pub. The second one, the .pub, that's your public key. That's the one that we're actually going to use. And the other one is your private key. You don't ever want to share that with anybody. Don't upload it anywhere. Don't copy and paste its contents anywhere. It should just live in this folder, and you should never really mess with it. But the public key is the one that we're going to need. So now that we've got this generated, we are all set. We're ready to set things up on DigitalOcean. But before I do that, I want to do one more thing, just in case this didn't work for you. If you're on Windows 10, maybe you have an old copy that's been around for a while. Maybe it's not updated to the latest version. I think this one, well, this one is brand new, but I think I read that going back to Windows 10 1803 and up, this keygen thing was already in there. They put it in there by default. But if you're running something before build 1803, then you need to install it manually. So let me show you how to do that just in case. If it worked for you, great. Go ahead and skip to the next video. So what I'll do is I'll go into Settings, and then inside of Settings, I will find Apps, and then I'll click on Optional Features. And you should, within this list, see the Open SSH client. If that's there, then it worked for you. If it's not there, then you need to install it. So once you do that, then I would say if that happens to you, just rewind the video and then watch it after you've installed this. And you may have to reboot after you install that Open SSH client. But hopefully, you're using a later version of Windows and it won't be an issue. If you found value in this video, if you learned something new, help me out with a like and subscribe. For more videos on software development and DevOps from a developer's perspective, check us out at maddevskills.com or on Twitter @devskills.